Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Alcrest. All right, now, okay, let's do a team review. So what is a team review? We're gonna review the team. So this is the Royals team. So this is a run I did on Maddening, base game, no DLC, where I wanted to use every Lord type unit who has a unique class on their unique class. This does include Veil. I did just get her, so she can't change off of this class though. She doesn't have a class to advance into. She can be second sealed into better classes, but for this type of run, I wanted to use her on Fellchild, just because that's the, her Royal Lord class type thing. So here are all the units. Let's go over their builds, the idea behind their builds, who popped off, who didn't, and why. If anything could be done to address these builds to make them better. So let's start with Alfred. So originally Alfred was on Sigurd, so that he could one-shot things early game, and then obviously when you lose Sigurd, he kind of falls off a bit, and he was on a bond ring for a while because Lynn was being used by Ivy for like 3 or 4 chapters, and then eventually she just switched to Corrin. He struggled to one round middle to end game, and only until I put him on Lynn and gave him speed +4 and lance power 4, he was able to one round consistently. Now this run was one of the worst for Wells I've ever had, where I had very few 500 and 1000 SP books drop, and I actually had a ton of Wells that produced like 3 items that were trash. Like I would get like a novice book and like 2 candy weapons, so that happened quite a bit. So this was one of the worst Wells I've ever had, so I couldn't get him lance power 5 because of this. Now obviously if I do like this mission and chapter 23 and so on, this save file just completed chapter 22, which I would say if your team can complete chapter 22, 23 shouldn't be that hard, and 23, 24, 25 all relatively easy when your team is good, and 26, like once you understand the map, is not that hard at all. All right, so he can double some things. He can speed take. He does usually need to speed take before he doubles. As you can see, even like these axe units are too fast for him. He can double like the armors, but against competitive endgame enemies, he needs to get a kill before he starts doubling. Now this is an issue. Ivy has the same problem though, but she's a better unit than him for a variety of reasons. But that being said, this is like a B tier build. It's not the best use of Lynn. It doesn't leverage long range Astrostorm kills outside of like shooting flyers. Even with like a Lear bonus damage, it still doesn't kill. It's just not that good. It's okay, it's serviceable. I would say it's just like a serviceable build. Now he is better on Wolf Knight. Avenir is very slow. It has high defense and it has a passive that enables tanking to some degree when it works. So he could be like an off tank situationally, but it's random when it works, and he definitely needs the speed fixing because right now he's at 20 base speed on chapter 23, and that's very slow. So he needs a ton of speed fixing, and his damage output's not impressive. All right, Alir's build. Now I could have gone with the early sword power, so I probably should have done that. But obviously getting Avoid +20 early and sword power is kind of a huge ask, because Avoid +20 I think is like 3k SP, so quite expensive. This build can still mostly bonded shield well because it's 90% chance to succeed. You also give +3 damage to the thing you're bonding, so it pushes its kill potential up a little bit. Now with sword power you do lose 10 avoid, but as you get more sword power you don't lose more avoid, so you just lose 10. And on Lucina you get dual support, so it kind of works out where if you were to run higher sword powers, you could one round more consistently. This uses Folkvanger with Micaiah, so you're always avoid +60, and then in addition to the high speed this class tends to have, which 31 speed is pretty decent by this point in time, and then +4 speed from Lucina. You're looking at high avoid value from speed and from your engraving and passive, and of course dual support. So it's easy just to bond something and just be unhittable. And you can also hold positions, waste enemy turns, just be like an obstruct tile that enemies will ignore, that they won't attack if you're too avoidant. So pretty useful, pretty good. I'd say this is like low A tier. The Saline Celica, Selenica, or Celicaina, I don't know, Celicaine build. This is okay. Saline's not the fastest unit. She has low build on this class. She'd be better off on Mage Knight with sword power, so that she get more speed from Chaos style, more speed from being on Mage Knight as a base, like you should get more base speed. I think she'd get 1 more point of build as well. She has to kind of use Owlfire to go for doubling until she speed takes, after which she can go for 11 sword. You usually want to reduce the weight of her 11 sword because her build is low. This is like a B tier build. With Celica, she can one-shot on Seraphim, and she can double in 1 round fairly consistently after she speed takes, but it takes her a lot to get going just to get a basic result of other magic units, so definitely not that good. It's okay. It's like B tier. Alright, Alchrist. Right now he's on Marth. I pulled Byleth off of him. Originally he was a Byleth bot who gave everyone speed +5. This honestly wasn't very useful. I was expecting this to be huge value, but giving people speed +5 when I already had fast units and fast builds barely mattered and rarely made a difference. And ultimately he was just good at shooting down flyers and dealing chip damage. Now I did want to get him Lunar Brace, but it costs 3k SP, and all I would get if I unlock that on him would be a unit who can almost 1 round but not quite 1 round. He would be completely reliant on Luna triggers to kill, and even then Luna does significantly less damage than something like Sandstorm. So like if a Sandstorm procs, you go from dealing like 10 damage to like 30 damage. If Luna procs, you go from dealing like 10 damage to like 15, sometimes 20. So best case scenario, you double your damage, but it's usually not enough damage for a trigger to kill. So even if you run something like Brave Bow on him, he needs like serious fixing to get it working. He'll need like Erica, he'll need all this stuff. And as a killing tool, like as a killing build, it's not that good. I'm gonna try him on Marth so that he can go for like Radiant or Silver Bow doubling. There is a Silver Bow +3 that he traded Fogado to get a kill in the previous map, so he'll get that back. But he's, I don't know, he can't enemy phase almost at all. This is the problem with archers. They can't enemy phase, and they can only player phase kill, which almost every build in the game can do. So archers just have a downside where they just can't enemy phase. They can get hit and like body block, but they can't like counterattack. So I would say this is like B tier. Diamant Ike, I think this is like low A. This is decent, this is serviceable. It's a serviceable Ike build. The random healing is nice. He has like roughly a 1 in 5 chance, which doesn't seem like it's very high, but if you double and you counterattack 10 times, it'll probably trigger. Or even 5 times it'll trigger, really. But 10 times it'll trigger like 2 times, like 1 to 2 times, if you play the averages game. So it's decent enough that it could sustain him to some degree. Now obviously he has trouble with res. He has quite low res. Actually, he has really low res. In a previous thing, he had higher res somehow. I actually don't know how that was. Maybe he had this equipped, but he has quite low res and can easily get killed. Oh, maybe he had resolve trigger, that's why. But yeah, he has low res and magic is a huge problem for him. Physical damage, not so much, but Marin and Tamara don't have this issue. They have higher res, so they can tank magic a little bit better. So those I think are S tier Ike builds. This is like an A tier. He has accuracy issues as an on axe and needs hit fixing accuracy engravings, but you know, those were being used in other units. So if he were to use those, he'd still be A tier because he generally would hit anyways. So it's like an A tier build. It's decent. Ivy and Corrin. I think this is low S. Ivy has good bulk, so you basically run the Lin ring on her. It actually doesn't cost this much to run. Speed +5 is only 2k SP. Speed Taker is only 2k SP, so she uses minimal well resources and mostly just uses her starting SP as well as SP she gains from leveling. And she can get herself really fast just from these two, but she has the bulk to tank and off tank. She has the damage to kill. She has flying. She has S rank tomes, B rank staves. She's basically like a flying sage. Her base speed isn't super high, but she's fast enough that as she gets kills, she'll speed take and start killing. Now with this build, she can fly into weird positions and attack groups of enemies, freeze as many of them as needed, and then tank and enemy phase the rest and kill them. So she's like a one-man army off tank. This is like low S tier at the very least, or even just like basic S tier. And she can also Thoron freeze as needed. And you know, you can run a crit engraving on it so it kills a dude and then freezes others, which is pretty useful. It has like a 1 in 5 chance to do that. So I'd say low S tier, very good bulk. Good tanking. All right, Hortensia, she was on Micaiah, but I switched her to Byleth. Now I can switch her back to Micaiah. She can switch between the two. Or I could just have Vale use Micaiah, who is using Micaiah. This build, so the Instruct is res +5, so it's not the best Instruct. It does help Diamant tank, but this is mostly just like a flying utility. The main thing here, she just started using Byleth, so long term, as you get to bond level 20, she'll get magic and speed plus, which means more damage when she does chip damage, and more speed for doubling, so she can double on L-Fire more consistently, as well as deal higher damage. So she'll deal chip damage, be a staff bot, and also dance, so she's just a utility unit. I would say this is low S tier. It's a flying Byleth, you know, you can't go wrong with that. It doesn't have like the speed from the Alchrist build, but we don't need it at this point. Like, no one's really so slow. All my fast units, so like speed taker, speed taker, speed taker, speed +5. He's really 31 speed, which he's fast enough to not get doubled or to double like average speed enemies, so his speed's fine. I can use a speed tonic, get him to 33. He'll be okay. And then O'Lear, 35 speed, that's more than enough. Like, the only thing I'm not doubling are like insanely fast enemies, but it's fine. But yeah, I think she's okay on this. She gets a little bit of a damage increase. You know, she's a staff bot. On Micaiah, obviously you can warp skip really well with her. She gets +1 range, but she gets +1 range on all of her utility heals. I think it just doesn't affect offensive staves. And then she also has a pretty good chance to conserve uses, which helps. So right now she has like roughly a 30% chance to conserve a staff use. And it can stretch your rescues and your warps, which there's a finite amount of those. But I would say this is like A tier. Flying, utility damage, staff bot that can dance as a support. Now as Alchrist as a support, I still don't think the speed +5 mattered much, if at all, because there's always debuff. So like if there's a fast boss, you can just debuff it with your Corrin unit. So it honestly mattered less than I thought it would. All right, Fagato. So he just got on Roy. He's been on Roy for a little bit. So the idea is he's going to be a silver bow unit. It goes for damage. Strength +2, I kind of regret getting, because like this is 1k, but then strength +3 is 3k. It's 2k more. So it's like the scaling on that's a little off. Like, it's very expensive just to get strength plus. So I should have just gotten him gentility. But like I said earlier, the well didn't pop off this run. I got a lot of bad wells that just didn't give me SP books. So a lot of these units are going to suffer as a result. Everyone can't get everything. And ultimately, some people are going to get less resources than others because there's only so much to go around. But he was okay at shooting down flyers and just dealing chip damage. That's literally all he did. So he's like a B tier on this. Vale, she is okay on this class. She's definitely better on Griffin or Mage Knight. Those are just substantially better classes, probably even Sage. But she's just going to be... I'm going to give her a Thoron. I'm going to get her Cantor after this. And she's going to be a Hex Cantor staff bot. So she'll just be a utility that also allows people to tank better and deal slightly more damage. So this one still needs more testing, but so far it seems to be about a B tier, roughly speaking. Maybe I'll give it an A because she can still like warp skip. She can like warp bounce a bunch of people. So I'll put her at A for that. But she would be she would be like an S tier for the time I have her if she's on a better class, because she could run other things that are, you know, better. But because I need more staff bots and more utility, she's going to be filling that niche. All right, and then Tamara Erica. This build is quite cheap to make. Let me just double check this. If engage Ike. Let's see, Serene's Forest. Pretty sure it's just 1k for base Resolve. And then 2k for Resolve Plus. Yeah, Resolve Plus is 2k. This build costs 4k SP. Or if you want to cheap out on it, you could do Speed +4. So Speed +4 is only 1k SP, and then Resolve, base Resolve, is, you know, +5 defense and res for 1k. You could build this for 2k SP. That's practically like her starting SP and a few level ups on an engage ring. So like even without the well, you could run a cheaper version of this and still have a very similar result. The difference between 1 speed and 2 defense and res is negligible. I just did this to max her out because she's main tanking. But she is able to take on groups of enemies and just kill them. Now enemies on this map she's not going to be doubling, but she could still tank them. So this dude has 52 attack, she has 31 defense, and then once resolve kicks in, she has 38 defense and 28 res. Or I'm sorry, yeah, 38 defense, 27 res. So pretty tanky. And then she can also boost her damage by engaging on enemy phase to get bravery and gentility simultaneously through blue skies. And then if she engages, she can heal while initiating through solar brace. So that way, if she takes some damage on enemy phase, she can attack and kill and heal herself and doesn't need any help from anyone on the team, and can just go off and fight small groups of enemies the entire match. This is an S+ tier build. This is really good. This is very good. This leverages her speed, her decent res, and her like a well above average defense value for how fast she is. And you can run Javelin, Steel Lance, or Fencelar. You can run this specific Brave Lance. With Erica, this one rounds most things, and it also rolls for crits and sandstorms. So you have 4 chances to get a 30% crit and 4 chances to get a 30% sandstorm. And if you get a sandstorm crit, it usually one-shots anything it hits, because it leverages her defense value as damage. And when resolve triggers and her defense gets to like 38, imagine having 38 strength when you're hitting something, but it's also 150% of that value. So it's basically like having 60 strength. If we were to just round up to 40 and then get 50% more of that, which would be 60. So like 57-ish strength is basically the damage calculation of Sandstorm. That's why Sandstorm's so crazy. It hits that hard. And then also she gets Dex from Erica. She gets Luck, which is Crit Avoid, which is nice. So she's basically uncrittable. She has Dex increase from Erica, so her Sandstorm chance is even higher. She needs Second Sealed. Obviously, I need to do that, but this build is one of the best builds to come out of this. It's just really cracked. Now, in the previous run, I did an Alchrist Erica build that could kind of one round, and it needed Luna to one round. This build one rounds with Fencelar consistently, with Javelin consistently, and with Brave Lance consistently, and it runs into no issues. The difference between Sandstorm and Luna is that Luna can't be used to enemy phase unless you change weapons. The other nice thing about this, I know you're thinking, oh, it's lance locked, axes are going to be a problem. When there's a bunch of axe units, you just switch to this and you one round them anyways, even without. Also, there's no lance power dependencies, so you get +5 damage from bravery. So your damage increases are all just from Erica, and then you just have to speed fix, and then the other slot is an optional. Like, you can run resolve, you don't have to. If you don't want her to tank as many things, you can drop resolve for something else. You could run Canter, so you could do hit and run tactics and then off tank like 2 to 3 things at a time instead of 4 to 5, which is what I usually use it for. So there's a lot of options with this build. Honestly, I think this is very competitive in terms of, like, you know, comparing this to like Pandreo and Kagetsu builds. I would say this is like S+ tier. This is a very good build. It's cheap to run, it requires few resources, and all you need to do is put an emblem on a character and it pops off. And I'm assuming everyone's getting forges and engravings. Everyone on my team has forges and engravings. These the bow utilities don't. Staff bots don't get it, but like main damage units, like Alir has an engraving. He has an engraved silver great lance. He has a forged javelin. He's a forged repisalis, which costs a lot of silver. Diamant has forges and engraved killer axe. Ivy has 2 engraved weapons. Saline has 2 engraved weapons. Pretty much everyone gets engravings and forges. Even Alchrist usually has a silver bow +3, but like I said, I traded to Mugato to get a kill on a specific map. Otherwise, someone would have died on chapter 22. But overall, I think this team is decent. This run was kind of fun. I'm probably going to end it here just because chapter 23 isn't really hard at all, to be honest. Like, with a team like this, I couldn't see it being a problem. I could even just Astra pull the boss if I wanted to. That's like the easiest way to beat it. So yeah, chapter 23, not so bad. Chapter 24 wouldn't be bad either. The other thing too is I still have 90% bonded if I want it. I don't have chain guards on a team like this because there's no royals that can chain guard. But I can still 90% bonded. And that in itself beats maps. I can warp skip. I can warp skip with Veil or with Hortensia. Either would be fine. That cheeses a lot of maps. Tamara can tank like entire maps. So she could probably hold down a front by herself, just killing like, you know, 3 to 4 enemies a turn on enemy phase. catching a heal if needed, but she can play her phase kill with Lunar Brace. The other nice thing is she rapidly refills her engage meter when you Brave Lance, because you hit 4 times and each hit is a bar, and she only needs 5 bars. So if she gets hit while doing this, which is likely, she can reset in 1 turn so, and then like immediately go back to being engaged. But that's the team. In terms of stat boosters, let's look at what we have left. I think there's a few. Yeah, I still have 2 speed wings I haven't used, a goddess icon. I could use them on someone, doesn't really matter. But that just goes to show that like there's excess. I did use, I think, a strength booster on Tamara. 1 Draco Shield, 1 Talisman. I used a few Spirit Dusts on Saline and Hortensia. I think I used a Draco Shield and Talisman on Diamant. At least a Draco Shield, probably a Talisman. Let's see, what else? Who else got stat boosters? I think Alfred might have gotten something. Someone else, I think Alir got an energy drop. Yeah, Alir got an energy drop. Sword power. Someone else got an energy drop. Tamara got 1, Alir got 1. And I think Diamant or Alfred got 1. One of them got 1. Someone else got the 3rd one, because there's 3. But yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoy these. I am going to be doing a new run where I do DLC substitution. So what it'll be is instead of doing... Or maybe I should do that as a stream. But instead of running DLC with the base game, I'm going to be running DLC instead of the base game. So instead of having Lynn, I will not use Lynn, her engravings or anything. No Lynn Paralog. And then I will use like Tiki or whoever else as a replacement or substitute. So that way I don't get Lynn's XP Paralog, but I get Tiki's XP Paralog. So some trade-off. So some downside to running Tiki that's not just like free XP, free items, and so on. And I won't get stuff like the silver card. But basically I'll be balancing it myself by substituting in, you know, losing a main game emblem ring and gaining another one, and then also no using emblems, DLC emblems on the chapters you lose main game emblems for balance purposes. So I'm going to try runs like that. That way I can play around with DLC without it breaking the game. But yeah, thanks for checking this out. Definitely like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.